So to give a brief overview of this NPM, like I said, the Department of BIA determined that rights of ways were, and they are and business leases are the highest, one of the highest items right now regarding infrastructure out at the agency levels. So with this priority NPM that we've worked to establish, the BIA policy is to create and establish efficient and effective processing and policy of right-of-ways and business lease applications for infrastructure, telecommunication, and renewable energy projects. And so the NPM is a national policy memorandum. You can find it on the BIA's website, and it was implemented April 15th, 2022. This NPM provides interim instructions regarding the official duties and responsibilities of Indian Affairs employees. In accordance with this national policy memorandum, all regions and offices are to process and review pending right-of-way and business lease applications for infrastructure, telecommunication, and renewable energy purposes within a specific time frame. So once we were creating and updating this national policy memorandum, we worked and coordinated directly with the Assistant Secretary and the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary to issue separate letters that were signed and distribute those to tribal leaders, BIA regions and agencies, along with various federal partners and industry developers, notifying them of this NPM and that we would be hosting these bill rollout sessions. Okay, next slide, please. So this NPM was updated. It does basically communicate the immediate importance and urgency and the impact for the major funding resources of projects that are available through the Biden administration for broadband and infrastructure to tribes. And we've shared this information already. This is the second session that we're hosting. The first session that we held was for BIA agencies and regions. So we appreciate everybody being on our call today. We wanted to take time to share this information with the tribal leaders, tribal staff, as well as industry to let you know about the funding that's available, and then also this national policy memorandum that's being implemented to help process applications throughout BIA nationwide. This NPM provides a concise summary of the right-of-way and business lease applications. And we're hoping that, with this updated and streamlined process, that tribes are able to provide and apply for the bill funding, which is the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And that funding is available through different agencies nationwide, as well as through the BIA. So this is BIA and the department's priority right now, so tribes can apply for that funding. The NPM was created to expand and include projects nationwide. And so we hope, we've been coordinating, BI has been coordinating with the White House Council of Native American Affairs, different federal partners, Department of Energy, EPA, and various other federal partners to share this information. So we wanted to share this information with you all today. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the process that we have in today's session. That is the end of my opening remarks. I am going to turn the session over to Ms. Jana Waters, and she will continue with the PowerPoint. Thank you all so much.
Forgot to unmute myself. Thank you, Carla. I appreciate that. So moving on a bit more with the NPM itself, talk a little bit about broadband, go through a little bit of history here. So taking us back in time to July 11, 2019, the FCC released a report with regard to the 2.5 gigahertz band. But the key to this is the FCC adopted a priority window for tribes to obtain that access to the 2.5 gigahertz. And that priority window went from February 2nd, 2020, and it closed on September 2nd, 2020. Okay, the FCC began to grant lease applications in late 2020, and it still continues to grant licenses. Even though that window has closed, projects are still being approved. It was just that at that point in time, that was a priority for those several months. Tribes that were granted licenses under that priority window are held to strict deadlines for building out broadband network infrastructure to serve 50% of the population in the license area within 2 years of receiving the license, and 80% of the population within 5 years. So for many tribes, their ability to successfully meet these deadlines and to retain these licenses is contingent upon their ability to obtain rights away for their telecommunication projects. Then on December 21st, 2020, Congress passed the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. This provided for $1 billion for a new tribal broadband connectivity grant program. Eligible uses for those grant funds include broadband infrastructure deployment on tribal lands, meaning that any tract within a surface estate or an undivided interest in a surface estate owned by one or more tribes in trust or restricted fee status. The term also includes a surface estate of lands held in trust for a tribe but reserved for BIA administrative purposes, and includes a surface estate of lands held in trust for an Indian corporation chartered under Section 17 of the IRA. Grant recipients are required to expend awarded funds within 1 year of receiving them. Expended funds may be rescinded. The Secretary of Commerce has the authority to extend this deadline for infrastructure projects under certain conditions. However, it's not mandatory. So recently the bill was passed and it added $2 billion more for broadband projects. A little bit of the renewable energy portion of it. In 2013, leasing regulations found at Title 25 CFR 162 introduced Subpart E, which is for wind and solar resource leases. The bill includes resources to support renewable energy infrastructure. Furthermore, it is in the national interest to support tribes in seeking to stand up for renewable energy projects within their lands. Now moving on to rights-of-way regulations. The right-of-way regulations are found at Title 25 CFR 169. In 2016, they incorporated many streamlining activities, which include established timeframes for the processing and decision-making of right-of-way application, and providing the maximum extent possible deference to the tribe's determination of documents needed. On tribal lands, it is necessary not only to maximize the use of federal funds, but also to provide tribes with the maximum flexibility and economic development opportunities to leverage these programs for the benefit of their communities. Moving on to the scope of the policy memorandum. This policy applies to all BIA programs, offices, regions, and agencies involved in the right-of-way and business lease process. The policy and procedures. It is the BIA's policy to comply with all federal laws and regulations, as well as Department of the Interior policies regarding the processing and approval of rights-of-way and lease applications for tribal infrastructure projects. I think the key there is that even though we have the policy in place and such, we still must follow all federal laws and regulations. BIA has determined that right-of-way and lease applications for the purpose of utilizing funding available to tribes for infrastructure projects that provide a direct benefit to the Indian land and tribal communities. If an application package is received by the BIA, a review of the package must be made within 5 business days as to whether the package is complete or not. So that's one key part to this, and trying to streamline and get them moving for a priority is that making the review of the package to see whether it is complete or not has to be done within 5 days. BIA will implement the following additional steps to simplify and streamline the processing of right-of-way and lease applications that are a part of or related to infrastructure. Number one, if the tribe or a tribal utility is the applicant, the tribe does not need BIA approval of the right-of-way on tribal land. For leases, an independent legal entity owned and operated by a tribe may have to obtain a lease from the owners of the land before taking possession of the land. But B, the tribe as an Indian landowner who owns 100% or 1/1 of the trust or restricted interest in the tract does not need a lease to possess the tribal land. As a result of the land buyback program, there may be allotted tracts of land where the tribe now owns 100% of the trust interest in the tract. The right-of-way application, grant, or lease document, map of definite location, and other tribal broadband use agreements for the project development with states and other federal agencies must be filed with the BIA for recording in the system of record, TAMS. That's our system of record. The title is Trust Asset and Accounting Management System, but we call it TAMS for short. That is our system of record, and it must be sent to the land titles records within 30 days of approval to be recorded and encoded in our system. If the right-of-way or lease is a part of one of the bill projects included in the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program, TBCP, and a bill grant, a copy of the grants may be the authorizing document rather than a tribal resolution. A lease is not needed to possess Indian land if the applicant is a 25 USC 477 corporate entity that manages or has the power to manage the tribal land directly under federal charter or under a tribal authorization. And a right-of-way or lease is not needed if the applicant has entered into a contract or agreement that encumbers tribal land under Section 81. If the applicant is a third party, the tribe may exercise all the regulatory permissions, including negotiating for any payment amount and asking the secretary to waive the valuation and bond and insurance requirements. The right-of-way grant could be utilized as one grant for all the tracts traversed by the right-of-way. Okay, approval or disapproval of the application must occur 60 days after making the determination that the application is complete. So we have that 5 days to determine whether it's a complete application or not. And then after that determination is made that it is a complete application, then we have 60 days to determine whether it will be approved, or it will be approved within the 60 days. Apologies, stated that incorrectly. The right-of-way or lease application, grant, or lease document, map of definite location. This is just stating that again, that all of those items are sent to the Land Titles and Records Office, which is similar to a county recording office, but is sent to a Land Titles and Records Office and must be recorded in our official system within 30 days. Right-of-way and lease applications for allotted lands. If the tribe or tribal utility or third party is the applicant, the individual Indian owners may negotiate for any payment amount and may waive the valuation requirement. And the right-of-way may be approved for the negotiated amount per 25 CFR Part 169.2. That's for rights-of-ways. And for business leases under Title 25 CFR Part 162.421. BIA will determine the number of owners and undivided interest in a fractionated tract of Indian land for the purposes of calculating the requisite consent based on BIA records on the date the application is submitted to the BIA. So we have to ensure that it still meets those consent requirements. If the tribe already owns the majority of interests, consent of the other fractional owners is not required, but the tribe must notify the co-owners. And lastly, review of the application must occur immediately upon making the determination that the application is complete. Rights-of-way applications crossing over multiple tracks. This happens quite often, that we have one right-of-way, one line crossing over several tracts of land, whether they're allotted or tribal. But applicants may submit one right-of-way application with supporting documentation for multiple contiguous tracts if applicable. And two, BIA will issue one grant for all the tracts traversed by the right-of-way for the infrastructure project, if applicable. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Simone Jones.
And great, thank you, Jana. I was also searching for my mute button. I'll go ahead and just turn my video on for a little bit just to say hi to the audience and to connect to a face with the name. And again, just to thank everybody for joining our presentation today. I'm going to do a little bit on our slide about the wind energy evaluation leases and the wind solar leases. Wheels are short-term leases that authorize possession of Indian land. They're really for the purpose of doing that associated evaluation of the wind resources for that electricity generation. A tribe that conducts wind and resource activities on its tribal land doesn't need a wheel. An evaluation is not required for wheel. The citation is provided there. Performance bond or alternative form of security is also not required, but the regulations do require insurance. In terms of short term, that's actually 3 years, according to the regulations, with a renewal for another 3 years. I saw in the chat that we had a question earlier about Hearth Act. And our presentation is really geared from the standpoint of BIA approving a lease. But if a tribe does have Hearth Act authority for business leases, they can also have Hearth Act authority for the wheels and the WSR. So thank you for that, pointing out the Hearth Act approval authority that the tribes also have. Next slide. Wind and solar resource leases generally can come after the wheel, but having a wheel, an evaluation lease isn't really a prerequisite to having a wind solar lease. But a wind solar lease is to authorize a lessee to possess Indian land for wind and solar energy resource development. The term of these are generally 25 years, about 50-year max term. The purpose is really to conduct that wind and resource activity on tribal land. And if it's conducted on tribal land, the tribe does not need a WSR. Next slide. In relation to a WSR, the tribe may negotiate for payment. Any payment amount may also waive that valuation requirement. For a lease on individually owned Indian land, it can be approved for an amount negotiated under 162.550 and 551. An appraisal valuation will also be requested for AVSO unless it's waived under those previous regulatory citations. And just like as we stated with this NPM, the review of the application must occur immediately upon making that determination that application is complete. So under this NPM, we have 5 days to make that determination of completeness. Next slide. This slide really speaks to just to kind of share with the tribe and industry about BIA's efforts for its information within our trust asset accounting management system. Previous to today, the BIA, we've approved multiple types of infrastructure type rights of way, from roads to electric lines to water lines, to fiber optic lines. And so this effort is really for our regions and agencies to ensure that the information with the system, especially for information, kind of older type rights of way is accurate, that we ensure that we don't have kind of any duplicate records in there, that we, for the benefit of the tribe and for everybody, that we have the updated status for the right of way. And in fact, in working with, you know, in thinking as an applicant about your rights of way, you know, certainly there's new acquisition of rights of way, but there could be existing rights of way where maybe an upgrade is thought of, or I mean, it's really important to understand the status of that rights of way, that existing right of way, you know, the purpose and all that. So we just wanted to share with you BIA's effort that we'll be undertaking with our BIA, our regions and agencies to ensure that we have that kind of data validation going forward to support a big project such as this. Next slide. And as always, our trust asset accounting management system, we have a module within the system called TAM's Realty Proposal. And that's really to track all the pre-grant and pre-lease activity inherent with a right-of-way. So that's even down to that very first maybe phone call from an applicant, or maybe inquiry from the tribe, you know, let's have a meeting about, you know, this infrastructure, these particular projects that we're thinking about. For the BIA, we can actually encode in activity to capture that. And then further, you know, as we work with that project, when we're giving communication about, you know, the status, maybe that project is crossing individual Indian allotted lands, and, you know, we're providing title status reports and communicating back and forth. We have ability in the system to keep track of that. But very importantly for us, the system is also to keep track of when we actually get that right-of-way application and we've determined completeness of that application. We've sent back our acknowledgement letters. And even when we've made decision on that, to ensure that we've made that within our regulatory timeframes, as well as, you know, that 5-day completeness review period as required by our MPM. So this is just kind of share with you that for build projects, we will be tracking when they're received. All our field will be encoding them into TAM's Realty Proposal, and we're encouraging consistent entry of these key activities to really aid us. And, you know, quick queries for data: how many, you know, rights of way do we have that we received? You know, how many have we made within the regulatory timeframes? So I just wanted to share that slide with you. Next slide. Here is just a couple resource links that we have for you. Certainly our presentation today speaks about BIA's commitment to do the review on a complete package, but we all know for folks who are on the phone who have worked with rights of way, the acquisition of rights of way can be a very time-consuming process. I think that's kind of maybe oversimplification of that, but there's a lot of effort. And so what we wanted to provide you here is with the regional contacts. I think for successful projects, and it's important to make that coordination, that collaboration, to continue to have that continuous communication with the region and the agencies on these rights of way. And like I said, for our presentation, we really didn't go through the right of way and the business process, but on these links, we do have a copy of our right-of-way handbook, as well as our business lease handbook. There's flow charts in there and some information that, you know, available to you to work with your region and agencies, you know, to start getting working on these right-of-way projects. So just wanted to leave you with that. And so that's all I have for you at the moment. I think our final slide is for any questions that we may have. But again, big thank you. Ahiat, thank you for joining us today. And we appreciate your attention. Thank you.
This is Jana again. Just letting you know, we'll leave it open here for a few minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we can address them. Maybe. I don't see any more questions. Carla, do you want to have any closing remarks, or Jonna?
Sure, I'll kick it. I'll let
Oh,
Jonna.
wait, hold on. We did have one popped in. Okay. Is the improved TAMS tracking meant just for the bill timeline or allow tribes to get up to date? Oh, go ahead, Simone.
Oh, okay. Yes, thank you for that question. Yes, the TAMS tracking is to support the bill, but it's also for kind of any transaction that we have for BIA. That could be maybe residential lease, a business site lease, as well as rights of way. And I guess the second part of your question, to allow tribes to get up to date, I think it also allows the tribes, the ability to have better information on the status of rights of way on its title record. So that's something that would support tribes. So I hope that answers your question. And then I guess the second question in the chat is, does this supersede or work with 25 CFR 169? Actually, everything that's stated within this NPM comes straight from 25 CFR 169, as well as 25 CFR 162. It doesn't supersede it. And in fact, it's just to supplement it within our, for example, within our BIA handbooks for right-of-way and business site lease, our process as established there is to review and then determine completeness within 10 days. But this NPM actually kind of advances that to make that immediately to 5 days. So I hope that answers that question.
There is another question in the chat. The memo says a lease is not needed to possess Indian land if the applicant is 25 USC 477 corporate entity that manages or has the power to manage the tribal land directly under a federal charter or under a tribal authorization. Is a tribal council resolution an adequate tribal authorization?
I would, I guess the way this question is structured, I would say no, not on its own. Again, we're referring to, it is stated in 25 CFR 162. And if the tribe has gone through that process of getting a corporate entity identified under that statute, they would not need a lease, but it's not the tribal author resolution alone that creates that. So I hope that answers that question. And I guess the final question, or one question is, does BIA intend the TAMS to be sufficient for documenting secured interest, lending notes on tribal land, such as mortgages? Would this be a place to note the presence of a home on the trust parcel? Yes, our TAMS system does have the ability to track mortgages. And mortgages can occur on a right-of-way as well as a lease. It really, if allowed under the terms of the lease. And so we would follow that process, and on approval, we can encode that into our system and associate it with its associated lease.
Let's see. Are the new benefits only applicable to infrastructure projects that are being paid for with federal funds, or all right away for tribal lands?
I would say all right away for tribal lands are important. Our regulatory timeframes apply for all applications for rights of way made on Indian lands. So I hope that also helps with that question. And then the final question we did answer, we will make the presentation slides available. There is a list of HERF Act tribes that have regulations approved under HERF. They're on BIA's website. We maintain a regular list there. If I can pop it real quick in the chat, the link, I think we'll do that for you here. And another question, would TAMS facilitate conveyance of a mutual help home to the homeowner? Our presentation today is mainly for a kind of right-of-way and business type lease like infrastructure. I think your question might be more related to residential leasing. I won't say TAMS really facilitates conveyance. Conveyance of an MHA home to the homeowner is kind of a different process, but TAMS certainly can track it. Oh, thank you. Our HRTAC coordinator is joining us, is in the training, and she just provided the link to all the HRTAC approved regulations. Thank you so much, Sharon. All right, great questions in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for the, yes, thank you. I appreciate you guys' questions today.
Go ahead, Carla.
I was going to say, if Jonna, do you want to do closing remarks, and then I'll go after you, follow up after you?
Sure. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Your role is valued in these processes. Please take pride in the fact that your jobs provide opportunities to support, manage, protect, and develop trust lands and natural resources in tribal communities. This work is often very challenging. We provide supporting roles to the management of various infrastructure, irrigation, dam, power facilities, protecting lives, property, and land from wildfires, developing policy for management of invasive species, assisting tribes with timber sales, inventory projects, formulating and communicating policies and directives, collaborating with our partners in advancing these tribal goals, and coordinating with our tribes who seek the support to advance these opportunities within their local communities. The Department of Interior and the BIA are committed to promoting and facilitating information exchange with our tribal nations, Alaska Native corporations, federal partners, state and local tribal leaders, to identify and implement ways to support tribal self-determination and tribal self-governance in the management of infrastructure, telecommunications, renewable energy purposes, and to have the greatest possible positive impact for our tribal communities. So again, thank you for your participation today. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to our office. Our contact information is provided, I believe, in the notification, or feel free to reach out to your local regional directors and agency superintendents. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jonna. So this is Carla. Just in closing, you know, this priority and funding of the bill law is essential to the new administration's all government approach to strengthening Indian country. You know, these conversations with tribes, federal partners, BIA agency and field staff, central office staff, they've helped provide a roadmap for the department and BIA as we begin to implement the National Policy Memorandum to support tribal applications as well for this bill funding. We know this bill funding is once in a generational funding. To have these billions of dollars available is a wonderful opportunity. So we want to make sure that we're providing support and coordination at the central office and local level. BIA, we're also looking at reviewing and implementing, you know, workforce analysis plans to help staff up local agency offices, central office, strike teams in order to review process applications, compliance inspections, creating these national policy memorandums for the benefit of tribes. So I want to take a minute to thank our presenters today, Simone Jones and Jana Waters, as well as Ms. Blackhair for her remarks and being available for today's call. Also want to thank Ms. Sharon Kidman. She's our Hearth Act coordinator, as well as the solicitors who worked on this high priority initiative for the department and for BIA. For the Division of Real Estate Services, we will continue to monitor and report to the Department of Interior leadership and BIA leadership regarding the process of these right-of-ways, business lease applications, pulling reports and queries, and seeing where we can be of assistance nationwide to continue to make this initiative our top priority. So we appreciate everyone's time and attendance today. Please reach out to your local agency and regional office if you have any questions regarding right-of-way lease processing, or if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to our central office. That's it for me. Jana, Simone, any closing remarks?
None for me. Thank you.
None for me.
Okay, great. Thank you everyone so much for your participation today. Wishing you all a safe rest of your week, and we will talk to you all soon. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.